Hi, I'm Kristen with Forward Life Network, where we help people go from stuck to unstoppable with faith-based guidance and actionable steps. In this episode, we're going to talk about a subject that is very near and dear to my heart, and it's the subject of PTSD, specifically grief-based PTSD. It's something that I have walked through in my life, and not only have I walked through loss and then had PTSD, I've also walked through loss and done things to help me not go back into that. So today we're going to talk about that. We're going to actually talk about 5 things that helped my grief-based PTSD. So we're going to cover those things in this video. It is kind of a serious topic, but I hope it helps you. If you could, please like this video and subscribe to this channel. As you've seen on TikTok, we are going to be doing more giveaways, and the more you're subscribed, the more you're going to have the chance to see all about those things that we're doing here with Forward Life Network and this channel. Okay, so let's get into it. We're going to be talking about things that can help your grief-based PTSD. This is a very topic that's close to my heart because this is something that I walked through in my own life. In 2015, I lost my father unexpectedly, and it sent me into this whole thing where I experienced a lot of symptoms of PTSD. Then in 2021, I lost my husband, and because of what I went through for 5 years, I really did everything wrong. Not that there's, right or wrong, but I really did everything wrong when I went through loss the first time. I didn't have any tools in my life on really how to cope with what I was going through. And then when I went through loss again the second time, I did everything the opposite of the first time. And it really was much of a healthier way to go through things the second time around than it was the first time. So it's something that I've never publicly addressed for about 4 or 5 years. I just really functioned with PTSD, and the only people that really knew were my family and very few close friends. It wasn't until about 2020 that I was working for a tech company, and we had a project that was outside of our normal work, and the project was to create an app. And we were supposed to work with different people that we didn't normally work with and on teams that we didn't normally work with. So I was in the sales and marketing department, and then we formed like a new team, and then the new team we were working with the operations, and it was kind of like a friendly competition, work competition. And so one of the topics that was given was PTSD. And so the goal for each topic that was given was to create an app. So we did this thing, and we created an app, and I created an app with the team on things that are helpful for people with PTSD, especially like grief-based PTSD. And we presented in front of the whole company, and it was the first time I actually ever said anything publicly about my story, about going through PTSD. I had never mentioned it, said it. I didn't speak about it for like 5 years. And it was the first time I talked about it in front of a whole company, an entire company. And I told my story, and we presented our app, and we basically received the highest marks for our presentation. They picked another app as like something they actually wanted to develop with the company because it was more in line with what they were doing, but they gave us the highest marks for our presentation and what we came up with. So the number one tip that I want to cover is prioritizing sleep. It sounds so simple to say that. It sounds so like everyone says that in the health community. You need to prioritize sleep. You need to prioritize sleep. You need to prioritize sleep. The problem is when you're going through grief, it's so easy, and especially with PTSD, one of the common things that you experience is like night terrors and flashbacks, and you experience things that don't allow you to get sleep. And then because you're not getting sleep, you're not recovering well. You're not already you're going through this traumatic response, and now you're not sleeping, and so it amplifies everything. So one of the things I didn't do in the first time I was going through grief that I did do in the second time I was going through grief was I really prioritized sleep. And I even went as far as to like take a melatonin supplement. And I just highly recommend, if you're struggling with sleep, it was so important. And I'm very like particular with the things that I take. And I understand some people are comfortable taking a sleeping pill, but the thing is that you have to get sleep when you're going through grief. You have to get sleep when you're in PTSD. And so I was able to just take a very low dose of melatonin, but I needed that. And I saw such a difference because the first time around I didn't have that. And I was exhausted. I was traumatized. I was fatigued. And I really didn't take anything to try to help me get sleep or do anything. I just sort of like kind of just grit it, thought I could just do that myself, and it really wasn't working. So even on the second time of grief that I went through, I literally from day one of that loss process started taking melatonin just until I could get myself to fall asleep naturally. And I also, prayed over myself. And when I look at Psalm 4:8, it says, "In peace I will lie down and sleep, for you alone, Lord, make me dwell in safety." And so it's good to speak scriptures out about sleep and prioritize it. And if you have to take a supplement or you have to take something that's not harmful but kind of gets you to that goal, it makes a world of difference. And I really, 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 it was like priority one, you have to sleep. So I will say it was a world of difference in those situations. Number two is not isolating. I isolated so much in the first situation that I went through with losing my dad. I isolated so much. I mean, I like just pushed everyone away, friends, family, my partner, like I isolated so much in that situation, and that's literally the opposite of what is helpful. Now, I understand that like when you go through these heavy situations, you don't want to like go to all these like crazy parties or like, just do maybe social stuff that you were doing before. But completely isolating is the opposite of what is helpful for PTSD and grief. And so as I went through the second situation, I consciously made a decision to not isolate. I consciously had trusted people over to even just sit there and watch like a TV show or something, or consciously would like go do certain things, or like I just really made it an effort not to isolate because it just exacerbates what you're going through. And I get it. It's really hard when you are in that trauma response. It's really hard to be around people because you are going through something so sensitive and people are not sensitive at all to you. I'm like, some people are, but like they're not. So I get it. But it's so important not to isolate. That's like number two that I would 100% recommend if you're going through grief is don't isolate, even if it's in small little ways with safe people. And when I look at Galatians 6:2, it says, "Carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ." And something else is just having people there and having a presence is really important. And before I went through grief and loss, honestly, I didn't really know how to be there for people that had gone through it because I hadn't gone through much of it before this point. So if you're somebody and you know somebody that is going through grief and loss, just your presence of being there sometimes is all that's important. Whether you just go over and like watch a show with them or just call them, I mean, even when I lost my husband, like there's people I could just call whenever, and it was just to have somebody on the other end of that phone. I would always say they were the lifeline, but just that presence, because the enemy, in both of my situations, the enemy worked to take them out prematurely, and he wants to isolate, and not only that, but he just wants to take away. He took he took those people away, and then he wants to steal any remaining joy you could possibly have in your life, and just shut you down. So not isolating is really important. It's number 2. Number 3, just going off of that, is you still need to be finding things that bring joy. And I know that sounds crazy, like when you're in this situation and you have lost so much, like how can you find joy? But it's really important to find joy. And I remember when in the first scenario, when I lost my dad, and I was in that PTSD place and I did everything wrong. I mean, I didn't have a lot of joy for like years. And it wasn't until I went to a conference and there was holy laughter that broke out in the meeting. It was like the first time I had laughed in like, I don't know, like 3 or 4 years, really genuinely a lot. And so because I kind of had done everything the wrong way in that situation, it was hard. It was very hard. And then in the second situation, I really tried to do things that brought joy into my life, like on purpose. Like I remember it was Christmas, and one of the reasons I have this like big pink tree is because I was all alone, and I had just lost my husband like less than 6 weeks before that. And I was all alone in this new townhome that we had rented, and I did not feel like celebrating Christmas. But I talked to a friend, and I was like looking at, I don't know, what can I do to like bring joy? I'm going to do the opposite of what I did in my first situation with grief. I'm going to do the opposite of that. So I need to have joy. And like I went out and bought my Christmas presents, and I bought a pink tree. And I just said, you know what? I'm going to get a pink tree because I'm on my own now. It's just me. It's just girly. We can go girly. We can make this Christmas pink again, and so I almost wasn't going to do it. And my friend's like, you need to buy that pink Christmas tree. You need to buy that. And I didn't feel like it, but I did. I bought the pink Christmas tree. I put it up. I bought all these presents. No one really bought me anything. I went out. I was feeling bad about myself. And it was just like, God's like, you buy your presents. Buy your presents. So, I might not have felt the joy, but I did the action, and I did the actions of things that were bringing me joy. And that helped me to heal faster and go forward faster than like when I had PTSD. And when I look at the verse, Nehemiah 8:10, it says the joy of the Lord is your strength. And it's so important to have joy because it's so easy to not feel strength in these situations. In the first situation, it was very unexpected. And like I said, I had the PTSD. In the second situation, it was extremely evil. And so it's hard to walk through those things in the flesh, in the soul. But when you find things that bring you joy, joy is like, to me, joy is like a weapon. Joy is like it just said, the joy of the Lord is your strength. And joy is like a weapon, and joy helps you fight forward, because otherwise you're done. You're done. You're done and you don't go forward. And, I would always say when I had PTSD, it was like I was in a hole. I was in this hole. And I always said the second time around, I'm not going in that hole again. And I think people had no idea what I was saying, but it's tormenting. And really, grief for a Christian is not biblical. It's not biblical to have that. And I know that was from the enemy. That was from the enemy to stop me, to stop my joy, to stop my life, to stop, me from doing anything. And I look back now at like the 10 years from that time and all the things that God's done in my life and all the victories and all the things he's done. And if I would have just stopped, in that PTSD grief, if I would have just stopped in any of those times, I wouldn't see all the things that, I've done to like feed starving children and to be a blessing to other children that have lost in their life, and to give to organizations and to give to people and to help a church that's, trying to be built, and just all these things. I would have just like gave up. And that's literally what the enemy wants. He wants to, when these things, tragedies happen, he wants it to stop. He wants to stop you. And anyways, so we're going to keep moving. Number 4 is taking comfort from the Lord. And even though we're talking about joy and not isolating and prioritizing sleep, that is something that I really have come to understand in a greater way. And when I look at Psalm 34:18, it says, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." And I would say that a lot of my life, the Lord has been there for me. But in both of these seasons, the ability to take comfort from the Lord has grown. Also, the compassion that I have for others, and the compassion that I see when I see other people that have walked through trauma and grief and brokenness. And it's like I can see what I couldn't see before. And so as I receive the comfort, because I feel like a lot of times in my life, I was always giving, I love you, Lord, and I'm giving love out to people and things like this. But this was a time to receive comfort from the Lord. And so that's another thing. It's important to receive. When you're somebody that's like a natural giver all the time, or doer, or giver, or go, or give, like when you're somebody like that, it's easy to just go about your business. I don't need any, I'm giving, but it's important to receive comfort from the Lord. And so that is important too with PTSD, that, I have grown up with the faith message, and I agree with that. And I agree with, find the joy, prioritize the sleep, don't isolate, all this stuff about being strong and walking forward. But I also believe in God's comfort and compassion and his love and and receiving. It's like I really received on a whole nother level about being loved in a place where I really didn't have anything else to give or to prove or to perform for. Because even in the church, it's easy to perform and to do everything right, and then you get love, and there's still, that can still be there, that performance mentality, that I have to be this big faith person, that kind of thing. But like there's a realness in like receiving comfort from the Lord and being vulnerable. And so again, in that first time that I dealt with grief and I had PTSD, I think I shut everybody out, and that, and I didn't receive that comfort. I kind of, and again, that just exacerbated that whole thing. This time around, I was really vulnerable with people. I was like, I'm in a spot, I can't do anything for you, and I need comfort and help and support, and I need it from God, and I need it from his people. And so it's not a lack of strength to be vulnerable and receive comfort and help from the Lord, actually. And the Lord resists the proud, and he gives grace to the humble. And so it's been humbling. It's been humbling to need God the way I've needed God, because it's really easy to grow up with everything and all this stuff, but when you need God, he is there. And so receiving comfort, taking comfort from the Lord, being humble and receiving is really important. So we're talking about things that helped my PTSD based grief. And number 5 is having forward-looking goals. And I still believe that. I still believe that, again, when I was going through the first situation with PTSD, it's hard to see forward. It's hard to even have a goal for the future because you're in a hole, you're isolated, you're not sleeping, you're not receiving comfort, you're not receiving, what you need. And so it's hard to even have a goal to look forward. But again, in the second scenario, I made it a point to have forward-looking goals, to look forward, to say, it didn't even even in like my dating life, like I would speak out about the future, but like it's funny because then when I would get to that point and it started getting real, I okay, that was fast. Like I would kind of pull back in my heart, like, oh, I was speaking about the future and that, I was going to get married again. I'm like speaking it out by faith and, having these goals, but, but like my heart wasn't really like quite caught up to like where my, goals and faith were. But it was because I was specifically, again, this is something I didn't do the first time around. I couldn't see past the next day, just getting through the next day. So what helped me not go into this grief-based PTSD was to have these forward-looking goals. And in Jeremiah 29:11, many of us know the scripture, it says, "For I know the plans I have for you." Plans to give you a hope and a future. And one of the words that the Lord gave to me after 2021 and going into 2022 was he gave me the word hope, He gave me the word hope. And it was about having a future, and it was about having a hope for the future. And when you're in a grief situation, maybe it isn't like remarriage, maybe that's not what is on your heart. But the Lord can give you a hope for a future, whatever that future is. Your future doesn't have to stop because you've gone through grief and loss and trauma. He has a hope for you. He has a future for you. And he gave me that word hope. And then I got my little dog and I named her Gracie Hope Diamond. I named her Hope. And it was because God wanted me to hold on to a hope that there was a future in front of me, even through these situations, even through what I went through with PTSD for 5 years, even with what I went through, walking through the most evil scenario that you could think of in a modern American society. There was still God saying there's hope. There's hope for your future. There's a hope for your future. And my dad used to always say, your future is bright. He would always say that. And so I would just speak that out. My future is bright. There's a hope for my future. And I didn't, when I was in that first scenario, that was a challenge. But in the second scenario, I found a way. I found a way to say there's hope and there's a future. I found a way. So you've got to have forward-looking goals. Conclusion, there's many things I could say that have helped my grief-based PTSD, but these are the 5 that we touched on today. Prioritizing sleep, not isolating, finding things that bring joy, taking comfort from the Lord, and having forward-looking goals. Those things were very helpful when I went through grief for the second time. Those things helped me to not go in the hole of despair and the hole of feeling like I was never going to go forward. So I hope those things have helped you today. I hope that you will comment below if you are going through grief. There's probably more we're going to touch on in this series because there's a lot more things I could talk about. There's other resources that I'd like to talk about, but those are the few things I just wanted to touch on today. And I hope you visit us at our website at www.forwardlifenetwork.com. You will have the download. You can download the PDF of these 5 things. And I just want you to be part of our community here of what we're building to help you move forward. And so, wish you the best.